This is the Sunday, July 5th edition of the Dark Illumination Report Podcast Extra. And on this episode, I'm going to be answering a question from Sophie, who asked, what holidays should she be practicing as a Satanist, and what holidays do I practice in my tradition? And I'm going to try to answer that for her today on this episode of the podcast.
This is a Dark Illumination Report Extra with RJ Womack.
Well, howdy, everybody. I hope you had a good 4th of July. I hope you drank a lot of alcohol, and I hope you had a lot of barbecue and just generally had a good time. Today, I'm going to be answering a question from Sophie, who asked me, should she be practicing the Wheel of the Year, the Wiccan Wheel of the Year, because it doesn't feel right to her. And to be honest, I wouldn't celebrate the Wiccan Wheel of the Year. I have issues with it, and it's a fairly recent invention. It basically was invented in the 1970s, and some of the holidays weren't even acknowledged or didn't even exist in ancient paganism. I personally acknowledge the solstices and the equinoxes and Samhain. And that's basically where I, draw the line. I don't really recognize Walpurgis Night, and I don't recognize some of the other holidays that other people do. And the reason I don't recognize Walpurgis in particular is not for any particular reason. It's just that I never acknowledged it as a kid growing up. And when I went to England, the people that I know in England didn't acknowledge Walpurgis either. So I kind of took that as a sign from Satan that it wasn't really important. And it is only recognized for the most part, in Satanism anyway, with a lot of Levians. It's not that Walpurgis is not an ancient holiday. It's just in Satanism, it really doesn't have that much value outside of the Church of Satan, So we don't really acknowledge it. As far as the winter solstice goes, I'm going to be doing something a bit different this year. I'm going to be recognizing the winter solstice starting on solstice eve at midnight, or solstice night at midnight, and then going for 15 days afterwards and celebrating different rituals and different holidays. And some of those rituals, I'll be honoring the goddesses, the ancestors, gods of war, or demons of war, if you will, and stuff like that. And the reason I'm doing that is because in ancient Norse tradition and in Yule tradition, the Yule festival went on for about 12 days. And in the Saturnalia tradition of the ancient Romans, it went on for about 2 weeks. So I feel it's appropriate to honor the gods and do a series of rituals over 15 days. That's relatively new for me. I used to only recognize the holiday itself on solstice, but now I'm going to take a break from doing everything for 2 weeks, and I'm going to take time off and honor the gods over that 2-week or 15-day period. 15 is important to us because it's a sacred number in our tradition, which if you know anything about the tarot cards and you know anything about the number 15, you'll understand why. And then if you think about it and you do your math, you could probably also understand why that might be significant besides just the tarot cards. And if you know anything about runes, you might also be able to figure out why that number is significant. I'll leave you with that little riddle to figure out. But anyway, so that's that. And the other thing I would mention too is that in the group that I was a member of for 17 years in England, our members would actually take off the solstices and equinoxes, and they would take off Halloween, and they would work on the Christian holidays and get time and a half when nobody else wanted to work, whether that was Easter or Christmas or whatever. So it worked out really well for them and for us. The other thing I would say to you is there are very few people that actually truly practice the solstices and equinoxes. I don't know how it is in paganism where you originate from, but I know in Satanism, it's very rare that people actually practice the solstices and equinoxes. It's very rare that people have any family tradition or any group tradition. Most people just pay lip service to the holidays. They don't really practice. They don't really practice rituals regularly. They don't have any built-in family traditions. In the group that I was involved with in England for 17 years, we had rituals for the kids. We had holidays for the kids. We had holiday activities for the kids. The kids did a play on Halloween reenacting Satan's rebellion from heaven, the Christian idea of it, that kind of thing. Even though that's not the only belief we have, it's just something they would reenact. They would reenact Satan's rebellion against the Christian God, and they would actually get dressed up in costumes, and they would do plays and stuff, and we would do barbecues at different summer solstice and stuff. So we had all of these holiday traditions that we had, and for every major holiday, we would do a meal with the entire family, and it would be much like a holiday meal you would see at Christmas or Thanksgiving. So, I mean, they were really established traditions, and I carried them on in my own personal practice, and I will be carrying them on in this new tradition as well. But like I said, at the end of the day, you kind of have to decide what works for you and what feels right to you. But the one thing I would say is just be true to yourself, because ultimately, when you try to find other people to work with, most people are not going to have a well-established tradition. They're not going to have, serious traditions that they've been practicing for years. And you'll be lucky if you find people that even do regular solstice rituals. Like I said, I've seen Satanists wishing each other a Merry Christmas, and that's ridiculous to me. Why Satanists would wish each other a Merry Christmas, I will never figure that out. And that's why I say to you that in my eyes, a lot of this internet Satanism is just that. It's just bullshit. It's fake ass pretend cosplay bullshit. No real Satanist would ever wish another Satanist Merry Christmas. No real Satanist would celebrate Christmas. Even though all the things that we that we celebrate during Christmas come from solstice. But we would just honor those things on solstice. We would never acknowledge Christmas and wish another Satanist Merry Christmas. That's ridiculous. But anyway, I hope that helps, and I hope I gave you some advice that will help you in your practices. But ultimately, you have to practice what you feel is right for you. But I definitely wouldn't use the Will of the Year if it was up to me, if I was in your shoes. Anyway, hope that helps. Take care, everybody. Until next time. Later.
Thank you for listening to the Dark Illumination Report podcast. For the latest news headlines, show information, and more, go to rjwomack.com. That's rjwomack.com.